Welcome to the Mini Book Podcast on YouTube. Let's get to the Mini Book Podcast on YouTube. Thanks for bringing these excerpts from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. So, our goal here, as always in these deep dives, is really to immerse ourselves in the source material you've got, notes, articles, research, and pull out the key insights, help you get up to speed fast.
Absolutely. And this book, well, it offers a really distinctive, sometimes, let's say, challenging view on how power works, how people interact. It treats power less like a title and more like a game with rules.
A game, right. And speaking of surprising, that P.T. Barnum story you mentioned. I mean, everyone knows Barnum, the showman, but the free music thing, hiring the worst musicians he could find.
Yeah, it sounds nuts, doesn't it? But the fascinating part isn't the music, it's why he did it. He wasn't trying to be nice. He wanted the noise to be so awful, so grating, that people would actually pay to get away from it.
And into his museum.
Yeah.
That is completely backward.
It seems like it. But according to the perspective in these excerpts, particularly Law 6, it's a prime example of mastering appearances, and maybe even more importantly, commanding attention. The idea is that everything gets judged by how it looks, and if something's unseen, it basically doesn't count.
Okay. So it's about just getting noticed, making a splash, even if it's a negative one.
Exactly. The source is pretty blunt about it. It argues it's actually better to be attacked or slandered than just ignored. Because if you're ignored, you have no influence, no base. Barnum used negative spectacle, to make himself impossible not to notice, to draw attention, and ultimately paying customers.
It does make you think differently about, people who seem to court controversy all the time. Maybe the goal isn't always positive PR, just any PR.
Precisely. It's step one, establishing you even exist in people's minds. But commanding attention is just one piece of the appearance puzzle. How you present your actual work is another big one.
Right, which takes us to Law 30, I think. Conceal your effort.
Yeah.
This one feels really odd, too. Like, don't you want people to know how hard you worked?
Well, according to this text, maybe not. Making things look effortless, that's the key. The source points to artists back in the Renaissance, like Michelangelo. Apparently, they kept their studios locked up tight, no patrons allowed while they were working.
Really? Why? Just being temperamental artists.
The source suggests it was more strategic than that. If people saw the sweat, the mistakes, the messy process, all the clever little tricks and techniques, it could actually ruin the magic of the final piece, make it seem less inspired, less awesome.
So the idea is to, hide the strings. Don't show how the trick is done.
Pretty much. The source says, teach no one your tricks. That appearance of effortless genius that boosts your power, your reputation, seeing the struggle can, I suppose, burst the bubble.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not just what you show, but how you carry yourself, which ties into Law 34, right? Act like a king.
To be treated like one. Yeah, your whole demeanor, how you project yourself. It massively shapes how people see you and then how they treat you. The source uses two contrasting examples. First, Louis Philippe in France, after the Revolution. He tried to be the citizen king, dressed down, walked in the crowds, tried to seem ordinary.
And how did that work out for him?
According to the source, not well. He lost respect. People saw him acting common, so they treated him like he was common. It weakened his authority. Now, compare that to Christopher Columbus. The source says he actually came from pretty humble roots, son of a weaver.
Wow, really? He definitely didn't project that image.
Not at all. He actively built this story, this myth of being from noble stock. And he carried himself with incredible confidence, almost like royalty. And that confidence, that bearing, helped him get meetings with monarchs, get backing. He was treated according to the status he projected.
So the point isn't to be arrogant or obnoxious, right? It's more about an inner confidence that you radiate.
Yeah.
Owning your value.
Exactly that. It's about projecting assurance. The source puts it pretty powerfully. Do not wait for a coronation. The greatest emperors crown themselves. How you see yourself and how you show that is crucial.
This fits right into Law 25 then. Recreate yourself. Don't just accept the labels society gives you.
Yeah, it's about taking control of your own image. Cesar Borgia is an example, changing his look, even his name, to suit his ambitions. Or Pietro Aretino, the writer.
Oh, right. Wasn't it revealed that his father was a shoemaker? His enemies tried to use that against him?
They did. They thought it would humiliate him. But Aretino, he did not hide it. He flipped the script. He basically said, yeah, I came from nothing. Doesn't that just prove how incredibly talented and brilliant I must be to have risen so high?
Yeah.
He completely reframed his origins to make himself look more impressive.
That's clever.
Yeah.
And the source also mentions big dramatic gestures, like Cleopatra getting rolled up in a carpet to meet Caesar, you don't forget that, or George Washington stepping down from power publicly twice. Those were calculated moves.
Absolutely calculated. They weren't just random acts. They were, carefully crafted theater designed to leave a powerful, lasting impression, to shape how history would remember them.
Okay, so we have stand out, hide the work, act confident, build your image, but then there's Law 38, which seems to say the opposite sometimes. Think as you like, but behave like others. Blend in.
Right. It's a crucial counterpoint. Sometimes flaunting how different you are, your weird ideas, your unusual tastes is just asking for trouble, especially if you're not super secure in your position. It can get you ostracized.
Like that Spartan general, Pausanias, started dressing and acting like a Persian after winning a battle.
Exactly. He alienated his own people by showing off these foreign customs. Or Campanella, the philosopher of the source, says he pretended to be insane to hide his real unconventional beliefs and avoid getting executed.
So acting normal can be like a disguise, a strategic camouflage.
That's the idea. Blend in outwardly. Understand the spirit of the times, as the source calls it. Unless you're so powerful you can afford to be eccentric, playing by the common rules on the surface can protect you, let you think your own thoughts without drawing unwanted fire.
We're about 2 minutes in now, and we would appreciate it if you take a minute to like and subscribe, and as a result, we will continually give you up-to-date books and relevant podcasts.
Okay, so we've immersed ourselves in this whole world of appearance and perception, which is pretty fascinating according to these excerpts. But power isn't just smoke and mirrors, right? It's fundamentally about people. It's social.
Totally. And the source's preface really hammers this home. It says, most people hide their real intentions, and understanding what truly motivates them, well, that opens up endless possibilities of deception, seduction, and manipulation. It really frames power as this intense social game where you need serious psychological insight.
Right. So let's immerse ourselves in that social game. Law 13 seems pretty direct when asking for help. Appeal to self-interest, forget mercy or gratitude. Yeah, the argument is that banking on someone's kindness, we're hoping they'll repay a past favor. It's shaky ground. People are mostly driven by what benefits them right now. If helping you doesn't align with their current self-interest, they probably won't bother, according to this view.
And the historical example is pretty amazing. Ilu Chusai, saving Chinese culture from Genghis Khan. The Khan wanted to basically wipe out the population, turn the whole place into grazing land.
Incredible story. And Ilu Chusai didn't plead for mercy. He didn't appeal to the Khan's better nature. No, he crunched the numbers. He showed Genghis Khan that keeping the population alive and taxing them would bring in vastly more wealth over time than just destruction. He appealed straight to the Khan's, greed and pragmatism.
So the real lesson there is you have to force yourself to see things from their angle, figure out their needs, their desires, and frame your requests so it serves them.
Exactly. You got to put your own needs aside for a moment and really focus on what makes the other person tick, what's in it for them.
Okay, now here's one that seems really sneaky. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Basically, act dumber than you are.
It sounds totally counterintuitive for gaining power, doesn't it? But the psychology behind it, as the source explains it, is pretty clever. Nobody enjoys feeling stupid. So if you make someone else feel smarter than you, more sophisticated, they tend to let their guard down.
Like those guys, Arnold and Slack with the fake diamond mine. They acted like simple, lucky prospectors.
Exactly. They played the part of these naive country bumpkins who just stumbled onto a fortune. And these supposedly sharp, big city financiers, they felt so superior, so much smarter, that they got arrogant and dropped their usual skepticism. They were completely fooled because they underestimated the suckers. An air of innocence can be a great cover.
Okay, shifting slightly. Law 12 talks about using selective honesty. Like, one honest act can be a weapon.
Yeah, the idea is that a single, well-placed act of honesty or apparent generosity, especially towards someone suspicious, can totally disarm them. It's like a Trojan horse. It creates an opening in their defenses.
The source mentions the con artist, Gordon. He pulled a fast one on Jay Gould, who was famously distrustful. But Gordon started with some seemingly honest gesture.
Right. He built a little bit of trust first, made Gould think he was dealing straight, and that initial act blinded Gould later on, allowing Gordon to swindle him out of a fortune. The bigger point is that a reputation for honesty, even if built on small, unimportant things, is really powerful. People find it hard to question later.
Okay. Then there's Law 32, playing to fantasies. This taps into something deep, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The source argues humans have this fundamental need to believe in something extraordinary, something that promises a quick, dramatic change for the better. A miracle, almost. And if you can be the one offering that fantasy, you gain immense influence.
Like the alchemy craze the source mentions. In 16th century Venice, the city was fading, people were desperate, so they latched onto this fantasy of turning lead into gold.
Exactly. Or Count Victor Lustig, the guy who conned another businessman, Lawler, with a fake money-duplicating machine. He didn't offer a sensible investment plan. He offered magic, easy wealth, playing right into Lawler's insecurities and desires. Promised the moon, not slow progress.
And the fantasy works best against a kind of dull, ordinary reality.
Right.
It's the contrast that grabs people.
Yes, you become the source of excitement, of hope, and of escape. That's a very powerful position to be in.
Okay, last one for this section, and it seems critical for the social game Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Not everyone bites on the same bait.
Absolutely essential. Choose your targets and your enemies carefully. The source talks about the art dealer Joseph Duveen. He apparently learned the hard way to avoid certain types, like plain man types. He specifically mentions Henry Ford.
Why steer clear of someone like Ford?
Well, according to the source's interpretation of Duveen, Ford just lacked the right kind of imagination or vanity to be easily manipulated by Duveen's sophisticated sales tactics. So Duveen focused his efforts on people like the Mellons and the Morgans people the source calls crafty enough, meaning their psychology was something Duveen felt he could understand and work with.
So it boils down to really reading people. Are they driven by ego, reputation, money, fear?
Precisely. Understanding those core drivers tells you how to approach them, what levers to pull, and, crucially, who to avoid provoking. The source warns that some people hold grudges forever if slighted, so knowing who not to offend is just as important as knowing who to target.
Okay, we've immersed ourselves in appearances and the whole social psychology angle. Now let's talk about the long game strategy, control, and especially timing.
Right, because power, in this view, isn't just about winning individual encounters. It's about sustained influence, which requires thinking ahead, shaping the playing field, and understanding the rhythm of things.
Law 29 really hits this hard. Plan all the way to the end. That sounds obvious, but maybe it's not.
It sounds simple, but the source argues most people don't do it well. They focus on the desired outcome, the happy ending, but not the entire path. Planning to the end means thinking through all the steps, anticipating problems, setbacks, other people's reactions, potential consequences, everything that could derail you before you get there.
The source contrasts Cortez burning his ships in Mexico like there was no going back, a total commitment to seeing it through.
Exactly. Compare that with Balboa's rush for El Dorado, which the source portrays as impulsive, lacking deep planning. And then there's Talleyrand, the French diplomat. The source suggests he planned Napoleon's return and eventual downfall almost like a grandmaster playing chess, always calculating several moves ahead. Most people are just too caught up in immediate wants to plan that thoroughly.
Okay, then Law 31 is about controlling the options, giving people choices, but making sure you win no matter what they choose.
Sort of, yeah. It's about structuring the situation so that while the other person feels like they have a choice, all the available options actually benefit you in some way. The source calls this the best deception because the other person thinks they're in control.
The example was that French courtesan, Ninon de l'Enclos. She had different categories for her suitors, like payers, martyrs, the favorite.
Right. So the men felt like they were choosing how to engage with her, what level of intimacy or favor they were aiming for. But she set the rules for each category. She maintained control over the entire structure, keeping herself desirable and powerful within it. It's about subtly framing the choices.
And then there's Law 35, mastering timing. This seems huge.
Absolutely critical. Power involves knowing when to move, sometimes acting patient, deliberate, never seeming rushed that projects control. Other times, hitting hard and fast at just the right moment can completely overcome an opponent and make you look incredibly decisive.
The source uses the failure of Woodrow Wilson's big expedition against Pancho Villa in Mexico as an example of bad timing.
Yeah, it just dragged on and on, became this slow, drawn-out chase. The source argues the sheer size of the U.S. force compared to Villa, combined with the prolonged, unsuccessful pursuit, just made the whole thing look clumsy, embarrassing, and ineffective. The timing, the pace, the duration, it was all wrong.
So how do you figure out the right timing, according to the source? Is there a trick?
It's more about observation and patience, it seems. Watching the flow of events, sensing the mood, seeing what others are doing. Patience lets you wait for the perfect moment to ripen, and then decisiveness, speed, lets you seize it before anyone else can react or block you.
Okay, Law 20 advises something that feels a bit isolating. Do not commit to anyone. Stay independent.
Yeah, this one emphasizes the strength in remaining unattached, especially when things are uncertain. If you don't take sides too quickly, make people court you, you can potentially play different groups against each other, and you keep your options open.
Like Henry Kissinger during that election. The source says he offered help to both Nixon and Humphrey, basically ensuring he'd get a top job no matter who won. Or Isabella d'Este playing nice with opposing sides to protect her own territory.
Exactly. She played a careful balancing act. The core idea is to maintain your inner freedom, your ability to walk away if an alliance starts to hurt you more than it helps. Don't let yourself get trapped by loyalty to a losing cause.
But wait, isn't that contradicted by Law 18, which warns against isolation? Build no fortress.
Ah, good point. It seems contradictory, but it's nuanced. Law 20 is about not committing your allegiance prematurely or unwisely. Law 18 is about not physically or socially isolating yourself, especially when you feel threatened. The source argues that cutting yourself off is dangerous. You lose information, you lose potential allies, you become an easy target, and you get paranoid.
So Louis XIV at Versailles, forcing everyone to come to him, was the opposite of isolation. He was keeping himself at the absolute center of everything.
Precisely. He was surrounded by information, by influence, by potential threats he could watch closely. And the source mentions Cicero, the Roman statesman, who built huge networks of contacts and informants. When danger arises, the powerful, according to this view, actually move outward, seeking connections, not retreating inward. Isolation makes you vulnerable.
Okay, finally let's talk about enemies. The source seems to offer two pretty different takes, with Law 15 and Law 43.
Yeah, they represent different ends of the spectrum. Law 15 is, while it's pretty brutal, crush your enemy totally, leave no possibility for revenge.
Why so extreme?
The logic presented is that any mercy leaves an opening. A defeated enemy, given the chance, will likely come back for revenge. So eliminate the threat completely. The source gives examples like Empress Wu poisoning rivals, or that quote from Narvaez about having his enemies shot. Reconciliation is viewed as naive and dangerous in this context.
Yikes. Okay, but then Law 43 suggests something else entirely. Work on the hearts and minds. Use seduction, not force.
Right. This law argues that coercion breeds resentment and resistance down the line. Seduction, winning people over emotionally, creates genuine loyalty. The example given is General Lang capturing King Mengwo multiple times.
But instead of killing him, Lang treated him and his men well each time, right? Feasts, respect.
Exactly. And eventually, Mengwo was so impressed by Lang's conduct, his magnanimity, that he swore lasting loyalty. Lang aimed to win his heart, not just break his will. It's about transforming an enemy into an ally through careful psychological influence rather than sheer force.
So the source isn't saying always crush or always seduce.
Yeah.
It's presenting them as different tools for different situations.
That seems to be the implication. The best approach depends on who you're dealing with, what the stakes are, and what kind of outcome you're ultimately looking for. Total elimination offers security, but winning hearts and minds can build a stronger, more loyal base. They're different strategic options.
Oh, wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, manipulating appearances, the whole psychological game,
Yeah.
long-term strategy, timing, dealing with allies and enemies.
And running through all of it is this core idea presented in the text, that power often comes less from overt strength and more from a really detached understanding of human nature, mastering how things look, planning carefully, and knowing exactly when and how to make your move.
It definitely paints a picture of power as this calculated strategic game. Sometimes, yeah, pretty ruthless rules seem to apply according to this source.
It certainly provides one specific and often provocative way to analyze why people do what they do, especially in arenas where influence and control are at stake.
So here's something to think about based on all this. The source strongly suggests that the greatest advantage you can have is the ability to observe people closely, to see past the surface and understand their hidden motives, their insecurities, their weaknesses. If you start looking at the world through that lens, seeing actions as potential strategies driven by self-interest, shaped by managing appearances, how does that change the way you interpret what leaders, coworkers, maybe even friends and family are doing in your own life? Something to mull over. This is the end of the podcast. As always, thank you for listening, and please subscribe. We've only managed to immerse ourselves in some of the key ideas from these excerpts of Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power today. If this discussion has piqued your interest and you want to explore all the laws and examples in full detail, we definitely encourage you to purchase the book. You can find links and more information right there in the description below. Thank you for listening to the Mini Book Podcast. See you next time.